So for today's session, what are we gonna talk about? What I want to cover? It's very tangible examples of where we see people make mistakes, and those mistakes can cost them thousands of euros often. So I'll try and give you a few highlights of things to keep in mind. I want you at the end of the session to be better informed, to be able to take better decisions, informed decisions, and therefore turn your doubts and your worries, or at least some of them, into more clarity, into confidence when you start or continue your buying journey in Spain. There's time for questions, as I said before, and I'll explain as well what you can do if you have further questions or if you would like to have our support for some of your buying decisions in Spain. The agenda, what are we covering? I'm going to very briefly say what it is, who I am, and what we do for those who don't know me, because we don't sell properties. So there's no interest here in selling properties to you. The market outlook, when you buy a property, you need to know in what market you're buying. It's very, very important. We'll talk about how the different players in the sector work, what they do, who helps you, who doesn't help you. That's where a lot of people make mistakes. We'll talk about financials, specifically for those people who are thinking of taking a mortgage when they buy a property in Spain. Talk about the cost of buying. People have always questions about that topic. And then the key process steps I'll cover as well. So this should hopefully give you, in 30, 40 minutes, as much as possible information to help you be better informed and start your buying journey with more confidence. One question up front here, or maybe first, so for those who don't know me, I'm Raf. I created Inspire Property Experts around 10 years ago. I was working at Accenture, helping big international companies in their procurement optimization. And why do I say this? Because it is relevant. What I did in my previous work there professionally was helping companies spend the money better, find better properties, negotiate harder, better contracts, etc. And so that's why when I started, there was a need in the market in Spain to help people spend their own money better when it comes to buying property. I run as well a YouTube channel with free tips and insights for buyers. So you can, there's some 600,000 people who are viewing our videos there. So there's a lot of information in there. I'll show you in a bit. And I also, the Barcelona City Council asked me regularly as well to host sessions for the international community in and around Barcelona on property, on buying, on renting. Why is that? Because we have an independent opinion. I'm not selling properties as everybody else in the market is trying to do. Okay, but that's a bit here's the email address if you want to reach out to us. At Inspire, and that's the last point about this, it's all about giving protection, safety to buyers. We want to make sure, and we see that our clients, they buy better properties, they pay less money for them, they save money, and they don't have to worry about what is the next step. Am I not skipping something or forgetting something here? Is this contract okay? That's our role, to give that protection. So it's a buyer safety pack that includes everything that you need as a buyer for a good purchase. What is everything? Having a good plan to start with, our opinion on the properties that you are considering buying. We can even search for the properties. We negotiate. Anna, she's our killer negotiator. She's every day fighting with agencies. The lawyers do due diligence. We write contracts, purchase contracts. We submit offers. We do technical inspections on properties. We go to notary with you, etc., etc. Main working areas: Barcelona, Costa Brava, the south of Barcelona, the Sitges area, Tarragona, etc. Maresme, north from Barcelona, right? And one final point here: we do invest as well ourselves in real estate with our own money. And why do I say this? Because this is extremely valuable experience. We're not advising people from a theoretical framework or like some lawyers do. Well, lawyers are key in our team, but property comes first. And you can easily buy in Spain. You can have a perfect lawyer, the best lawyer, and can still buy the wrong property. The lawyer is not going to go there to check how the street is at night. The lawyer is not going to talk to the neighbors. The lawyer doesn't care about the technical state of your property. as long as the contract is protecting you. Right? That's examples. Lawyer doesn't care how much you pay for a property, etc. So for those, let me show you briefly, if you want more information, where you can find that. So here is the YouTube channel, and you see there's videos on more for investing. There's interviews with buyers here. There's quite some content for US buyers specifically. There's client stories, there's golden visa information there. There's, you name it, and you probably find a video on that topic here. So feel free to explore it. And if you want more, you go to there's a QR code that's in the presentation. On our webpage here, get started. If you want to have, at the end of the session, if you're interested in having a one-to-one discussion with me, go here to our website. You say, you click here, fill in your buyer wish list. A simple form. You tell me what you're looking for, and then we will look at it, get back to you, and let you know if you think it's realistic, how we would approach it, how we could help you. So back to the content now. Okay. We're going to launch a quick poll. There's a message going to pop up on your screen, and that poll is that helps me to understand who you are, helps me to select examples, because I could talk for hours, but I will try and be as relevant as possible. So can we launch the poll? Of course not. So just let me know where you are in the process, because some people are very early stage, thinking of buying at some point, while other people are a lot more advanced, and they come to us and say, I've seen a property, can you help me buy that property, please? So that's different. Is the poll online? You should see I don't see it on my screen for some reason, but you should see that. One second. Okay, so we leave this open for a little while here, this poll, and then we continue. Market outlook. What is happening in the property markets today? When you read, for those of you who follow the news, first, I think point of warning from my side, most of the information you read about the property market is based on average data, and that's normal. Average data, it's often average data for Spain. Now, we are focusing this session on Barcelona, the coasts around Barcelona. I think most of you are international people, international buyers, non-Spanish buyers. That's a specific segment of the market. In our experience, we only work with international buyers. We see that they want better properties, better locations, have often slightly higher budgets as well. So all data, just be mindful, it's really average data. Here you see that just a few screenshots from what you see in the news. You see Spain. Spain is different than Europe. The lack of property makes the prices go up further, while in other countries prices are dropping. You see here property prices in Spain, the last nearly 2021 to 23 till September, prices of properties are going up. There's a clear trend in this. A recent article here, the valuation companies, official valuation companies, tasadoras in Spanish, they think that property again this year is going to be like 5-6% up in the market. There's more and more Americans buying for diverse reasons. That's one of the things we see in the market. But again, this is data for Spain. Let's now look at Barcelona specifically. Okay. Again, data from September, end of September. We see prices year on year has increased by 1.4%. That's not much. It's no big thing. Right? It's not very significant. But if you look at the different districts, on the left in this chart, in this table here, you see that there is quite some differences. The old cities, we had Vea, 4% up. Horta, a bit outside the center, 5% up. Some areas a little bit down, but there's an overall trend. What's important to understand is if you look 10 years back, Well, prices have gone up by 60% in the last 10 years. And that's important for, I think, to understand. Why is that? Barcelona is a very cosmopolitan city. For a market to allow prices to increase over time, or to increase more than the average over time, what do you need? A lot of demand for properties. How do you get demand? Not only local demand, you need international demand with higher budgets to make prices go up. And that's what's happening in Barcelona. Yeah. This segment is very strong. It remains very strong despite higher interest rates, despite inflation, despite uncertainty, etc. We see that the international segment remains very strong. Okay, again, it's still average. These numbers here, the 1 to 4% is still average data. But what we do see, and that's not new, there is always bargains in the market. And it often depends more on the buyer's urgency, the seller's urgency to sell the property, rather than on average market data or prices. Barcelona is still very cheap. It's around half the price of Paris, to give you an idea. But there is a lot of potential still for price increases. A lot of our customers, they buy properties in the range, let's say between 200 and 100,000 euros and 800,000 euros. A big chunk of our clients sits in that range. And that segment is liquid. There is demand, international demand for this. Okay. What does it mean? What does it mean for you as potential buyers, people who are thinking of buying? Well, what I see is people that will benefit from this, and people that I see very actively coming onto the property market in the last months, and the group of people that I think will continue to buy a lot of properties in the next year, is what I call young international professionals working in Barcelona. It's 25 to 35-year-old people that go to work on their e-bike, yeah? But they work in tech companies, they work in international companies, have salaries 3,000 euro plus per month, stable salaries, therefore access to mortgages from banks, great profile for banks very happy to give them 80% financing. That's a profile that segment is increasing. Today we wrote a notary with a buyer, and the guy is 25 years old, buys his first property, but as it works in this tech sector, very interesting financial conditions. And that's the reality. We see cash buyers, of course, as well. When interest rates are higher, there's a big advantage for cash buyers when it comes to negotiating, when it comes to securing properties for you, instead of for other buyers. But what is key, and where do I see too many mistakes, is people first, they start with looking at properties. And then they like a certain property, and then they're not ready. They forgot the preparation. Preparation is so important. And people who are not prepared, they will miss out on good opportunities. They're not ready to take a buy decision, to submit a firm low offer, because they don't have mortgage approval maybe from their bank. They're not sure. The bank said, don't worry, it will be okay. That's not an approval. That's for me no sufficient guarantee to put 10% down and take the risk of losing that 10%. It's as well people when they like a property and then suddenly they say like, we're not really sure about. We had a case recently, somebody loved the property and they said, I'm not sure about the area. But that's the wrong order of things. You got to prepare that first. The first thing we do with every single customer is talk about the financials. I need to understand, where is the money? How much money do you have today? Is it in Spain? Is it outside Spain? Is it in stocks? Is it in the bank account, etc.? And you want a mortgage. That's the first thing. And if you want a mortgage, let's get mortgage simulations. Let's get options on the table. That's crucial, absolutely crucial. It allows you to act faster to win in this race. Second thing we do is sit down in a workshop mode and have a session to think about what is realistic, what is possible. And that's what a lot of people as well forget. And that's a combination of which areas do I really like, where would I like to buy, which are my property features that I need. That's, most people know that. 3, the budget. That's why I talk first to the banks or the mortgage broker. Now 4, how does my lifestyle fit in? And is this all balanced? And a lot of people that have unrealistic expectations. It's not balanced, and therefore very difficult to find a property. You can easily be 3, 4, 5 months searching, and they won't find it just because it's not realistic. Okay. This pre-approval for mortgages, for those of you who want a mortgage in Spain, is, I think 8 out of 10 people, they don't have that. They got an answer from the bank like, it's okay, you can get a mortgage. The banks, they know that. And they know that once you find the property, if you don't have pre-approval from different banks, you only have one option. It's to go with your incumbent bank. Yeah? And you think you will get the best conditions? No. Your incumbent bank will abuse that situation. You pay higher interest rates than what you should be paying. And last point here regarding the market. The segment that you're looking at is very strong, will remain strong, I think, with good bargains in there, often off-market bargains, non-listed properties. We come across them because we're day-to-day in the market. But overall in Spain, the transactions of properties, they will decrease this year. We see this already, and that's very simple. It's because of the higher interest rates. The ECB, central bank in Europe, has increased interest rates, I believe, 10 times in July last year. Now they won't increase any further. They will go down next year, or we expect they will go down. So that makes that less people with lower incomes, with less savings, will struggle more to get financing. Overall, transactions will go down by how much? I don't know, 10, well, I do know, I think 10, 15% probably across Spain. I don't think they will go down in this international segment. Okay, that means that most real estate agencies that sell properties, they will see their business volume go down. Be careful. We see agencies telling us already now that they're worried that they're not selling enough. So, and I come to this later about the responsibilities of agencies, so that you don't make mistakes there when you work with them. Now, another poll. We're gonna launch the second question on the screen, and this is a link to the next topic that we'll talk about. When you buy a property in Spain, so most people, you find a property on any listing site, Idealista, Quiero, Fotocasa, whichever listing site, and then you get in touch with an agency. In Spain, we call it agency. Those agencies, here's a question. When you talk to them, when you buy a property through them, who is the client of that agency? Is it you as the buyer? Is it just the seller? Or is it both of you? Because in the end, the agency should be intermediating and making the transaction work, right? Between you and the seller, get price agreements, agree on timings, agree on contracts. So the poll is on the screen, I think. Okay, tell me when we have sufficient answers, and then I proceed. You should all see it. It's just one very simple click. Okay, a few seconds, and then we move ahead. We're closing this poll now. This question, why do I put it here, and why did I wait so long to let you answer? It's very simple, because when we ask the question, I asked it again and again and again, about half of the people get it wrong. And it means that, so here is, this is how people so far, I don't know today, let's see later, tend to respond. So half of the respondents tend to say that the seller is the customer of the agency, and the other half basically says it's either the buyer or it's both buyer and seller. Now, the right answer, there's only one right answer. It is the seller is the only client of the agency. The agency exclusively defends the interests of the owner, of the seller. Those results here, they basically mean that half of the people, 50% of the candidate buyers, starts off their buying journey with a fundamentally wrong understanding of who's going to help them. And that's where abuses start in Spain. Why is that? Because realtors have no obligation in Spain to give you all information about the property. That's hard to believe if you come from France or Netherlands or Belgium or the US or the UK, but it is the reality in Spain. Examples. If there is a problem, a technical problem with the building, the realtor doesn't have to tell you. If the owners are, let's say they're a couple, and the house is only of the wife, okay, the apartment, let's say, and they're selling it, but they're married, and there's a kid, but they're getting divorced, and that's the reason for selling it. The agent doesn't have to tell you, but there's an implication from your contract, because probably the husband, who's not an owner of the property, might have to co-sign and authorize the transaction because they have a kid and they're still married. So that's examples of things that nobody tells you. You can make a payment of 10% of your purchase price to the wife, because she is the legitimate owner and she can prove that she's the only owner. It's often not sufficient, and then you're into problems, right? When there's disputes between neighbors, between other owners, who talks to the homeowner association? What was said in the last meetings of the homeowner association? These kind of things, they don't have to tell you, and that's often a start for big problems. It's not only the agencies who sell the properties, it's also, and that's very different from many other countries, the notary public. In a lot of countries, in Europe, there is two notaries involved in a transaction. The buyer has a notary, the seller has a notary. The notaries talk to each other. They prepare your earnest money contract, Atos contract in Spanish, when you pay 10%, and they check the things on everything on the property. In Spain, the notary, you only see the notary the last 60 minutes of a 2 to 3 month journey. He or she is not involved and not responsible for checking anything on the property when you sign purchase contracts prior to it. And the day of signature at the notary, they will check your ID. They will ask that they will confirm with the seller that that property is his property, that he's selling that, and there's no charges on it on the property. But everything else, if it's not fixed or identified or foreseen beforehand in your purchase contract, when you reserve the property, when you pay earnest money, when you sign Atos contracts, it's too late. Okay, so that's always what I try to say. That's our day-to-day job, and it's a big struggle to get all the information about properties, because there is no single source of information. There's no single database or transparent system that you can go to and get all property information or information about the owner or property history. No, it doesn't exist. So it's talking to the seller, it's talking to the city council, it's talking to the homeowner association, it's talking to the cadastral, to the land registry. It's complicated, but that's what you need to do to make sure that all the checks are that everything is okay. And very often things are not okay. They don't necessarily mean that you can't proceed with the purchase. They mean that the contract signatures should be delayed, and these things need to be fixed and included in the contract so that you are protected. Okay. Good. Next, we talk about the financials now. It's mainly for people who want to take a mortgage in Spain. All right. Many people, they in the end find a great property. They manage to negotiate a good price, or we negotiate for them if they work with us. But then they don't optimize their mortgage terms and conditions because they're not prepared. They go to their bank too late, and they don't have any other options. Because once you sign an Atos contract, earnest money contract, you have a month and a half, 2 months stability to complete the transaction at the notary. A bank needs several weeks to prepare a binding offer, and then you have legal waiting time, etc. So you can't compare anymore. Interest rates are up, so it's even more important to optimize your financials. This isn't from Expansión. This quote here, Expansión is the largest financial newspaper in Spain. So the average interest rate for mortgages is 4.3%, and that was published just 20th of October, a few weeks ago. So why are our clients signing mortgages with fixed interest rates between 2.8 and 2.9%? Because that is reality. Huh? That is what we see every single, not every day, but every week. We have one or more buyers buying properties. That's the rates that they're signing. It's because you need to prepare. You need to push banks, ask for I prepare for our customer scenarios to ask banks. We look at what other costs they're trying to wrap in, costs they maybe should not include in the mortgage. But it's also a question of how do you approach a bank? If you are you're living in Spain, let's say you live in Barcelona, you have a bank account. The chance that you have a very good relationship with your bank is, I think, rather low. You don't interact much with your bank, so they don't know you. Huh? The data shows me that people who go directly to their bank, they don't get the best mortgage rates or those terms and conditions. Can a broker be better than a bank? It depends. If the broker is a good broker or an average broker, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It probably creates more problems than savings for you. If the broker is very good, and we know who the very good brokers are, they can save you a lot of money, a lot of headache, and they can accelerate your timings. And they help you sign purchase contracts, earnest money contracts, Atos contracts, when you pay 10% with confidence, with pre-approved mortgages before you sign such contracts. And that is very, very important to not put your money at risk, to not get into unpleasant discussions with sellers, etc. But also, if you want to buy a property and get lower, pay a lower price, negotiate harder, if you tell the seller, look, I want to pay an X amount less than what you're asking for the property, but give me 3 weeks, because I need to talk to my bank, etc. It's not working. It's not working. You need to be ready. Okay, so very good brokers, they save thousands of euros to our clients. And if the bank tells you, I said this before, don't worry, you can get a mortgage. No, get the pre-approvals before starting to search for properties. That's the right timing. If banks say we can give you 90% or 100% financing, it's not true. It's only true under certain conditions. And these conditions are very, very difficult to meet, and they don't depend on you. They depend on the property. Okay, so 80% is the rule. 80% of the purchase price is the rule for people who are resident in Spain. Okay, and so you're fiscal resident here, 80%. Sometimes 90 is possible, but again, conditions come in here, and it's not easy. Don't believe these offers from banks. If you're non-resident, 70% is the maximum normally. 60, 70%. Again, everybody's situation is different. You can be a resident and only get 60%, but normally 80% is possible. All right. So here's an example of how much money you need when you buy a property. Because some people wrote me a question before this webinar, and several questions were around how much savings do I need to buy a property in Spain. I'll give you an illustration here. So imagine you buy a property of, where is my screen? There you go, of 400,000 euros purchase price. In Barcelona and Catalonia, that's the area we are focusing on, you pay 10% purchase tax. So that will be 40,000. I'm on line 2 now here. As a buyer, you pay by law the costs of the notary and the land registry, the registration of your property. That's approximately 2,500 euros. It can be in some cases 3,000 euros. It's not more. It can be 2,300 as well, but that is an indicative number. So basically, for a 400k property, you need to have 442,000 euros and 500 euros. Okay, 442k. That's what you need for the standard buying costs. Purchase tax, called ITP, property transfer tax in Spain, and notary and land registry. Now, how does it work now with the mortgage? So let's say you take a mortgage, you get a mortgage of 80% of the purchase price, so 80% of 400,000, that's 320k. There will be your mortgage. Therefore, logic conclusion is the difference between 320 and the 442 is 122. You need 122, okay? And then you have covered not just the property price, but then you have covered as well the purchase tax, notary costs, etc. In percentage, that's around 30% of the total purchase price of the property, correct? Okay, it's an illustration. Some numbers can change. The purchase tax can be calculated either on the purchase price or on the reference value of the cadastre. That's a new concept introduced, I think, last year. There's typically not big difference, but for instance, the client who bought his property today, the reference value of the property was higher than the purchase price. So the tax authority say you pay the tax on the highest number of the two, exactly. So on the higher number. But there is ways that you can try and claim some of this money back. That's what we're doing now for this purchase case. Try to justify that should be a lower reference value, and then you save again a significant amount of money. Some people, again, sorry, some people can also get a reduction in the purchase tax. For people under 33 years old and with salaries not above certain limits, and then you pay 5% purchase tax. And that's very interesting. Then the numbers start to change significantly, of course. If you would have 5% here, well, you save 20,000 euros. If you are together with your partner, and your partner is over 33, and you're under 33, and you meet the other criteria, on your part of the purchase, you pay 5%. On your partner's part, you would pay 10% of the purchase tax. So overall, 7.5% on average. That is how much funds you need typically for a purchase in Spain. Again, I said before, the first thing we do with buyers is talk about the financials. That's this, but it's also, I use a standard form to understand, you buy together with you alone, you buy together with your partner, how old are you, where do you work, which company, is an international company, are you resident in Spain or not, what's your income, what are your savings, parameters, your tenure in the company, parameters that basically I know the banks look at, the banks take into account to determine your risk rating, your credit score. The higher your risk rating, the higher loan to value percentage you can get from a bank, the better conditions in terms of interest rates, etc., you will get from a bank as well. So that's why we do this up front. If you want to understand what is possible for your situation, so okay, let's say you say, okay, I have 100,000 euros. The properties I like are in the range of 400,000. Is it possible? Yes or no? Let's discuss. I put you in touch with the best broker of Barcelona. They don't charge anything up front. That's what you need. You need simulations and pre-approvals before you start. They only charge when you take a mortgage through them, meaning when you don't find a better mortgage through your own bank or your own contacts. So there's no commitment. It's fantastic. The service those people offer. Right? So that's the part on financials. The takeaway here is average mortgages in Spain 4.3%. Our clients are signing 2.8, 2.9 fixed interest rate, no variable interest rates. That's one point. Pre-approvals are key. If you want to know how much money you need, here is an indicative example of such numbers. This is for residents, based on 80% financing. Good. Let's move ahead before I open up for questions. Okay, we've talked now about you need to know in what market you're operating, how you find good deals, and what prices are doing. You understood now what agencies do, what notaries do and don't do. Because they don't do the work for the buyer, that's why we created our business, to be honest, to fill a gap in the market and make buying easier, take the risk out of it for the buyers. We talked about the financials. So now, let's say you have a property. How does the process look like in Spain? I can't explain all of this in 5 minutes. There's an entire webinar on our YouTube channel. It's called, I think, the 10 steps in the buying process. I talk an hour about it. But in a nutshell, what are the steps? 10 steps here. Of course, the end step is notary. Notary means transfer of ownership, means you get the keys of a new property. You get a title of ownership for a notary. But it starts with the preparation. I'm not going to reiterate this again. Okay. Then you start looking for properties. When we work with clients, we have clients that like to search for properties themselves. We have clients that ask us to search for properties, to screen the market, to pre-visit properties without them, and come to them with a selection of properties that have passed all our filters. We've seen them already. It's the best of the best. Depends why you want to buy and if you have time and if you enjoy this. You search, you make visits, and you shortlist. So these 3 steps is what you can do on your own. You can be in the driver's seat, we are in the passenger seat, or we are in the driver's seat and you're in the passenger seat, and you save loads of time and stress. Then you need to perform initial checks on properties. We use standard checklists for visits, but also before making an offer. Is the property actually good enough? Is it good value for money? What about the long-term potential in the market? What if, because we see this, people live today in Barcelona, but maybe in a few years you get a job offer and you go for 3 years to Singapore or to California. So is your property attractive on the rental market? It's important to think about. What about the homeowner association? What about the technical state of the building, etc., etc.? So that's things we check here. We benchmark the price of the property. We use big data tools for that, but also the experience day-to-day in the market. How much do we think that this house or that apartment is worth? It's a key thing before entering in submitting an offer and then performing negotiations with the sellers. When you submit an offer in Spain, it's a formal document. It's called reserva or reservation document, or sometimes a letter of intent. There's different namings for it. The important thing is what you agree here is the purchase price. You need to have a clear, of course, need to be very clearly listed what property this is about, exact address, cadastral reference number. 2, what is the purchase price? And 3, what are your timings? What timings can you meet? Timings in terms of going through this process, going from step 6 to step 10. And you need to put 2 dates in your contract, the date for step 9 and date for step 10. By when can you complete basically the process? That timing basically depends on if you have your funds available and if you need a mortgage, yes or no. Because if you need a mortgage, it's automatically you need to add easily a month, sometimes more from because the bank needs it. So you submit an offer, then they might accept it right away. Typically, owners don't right away accept it. And then there might be a negotiation stage. I think about every client, every buyer is asking me, like, how much do you need to negotiate in Spain or in Barcelona? Well, there is no single answer. That would be too easy because then we wouldn't need experts to run negotiations. Some properties are priced significantly above their value. And we've seen cases where properties are like 50, 60, 70K above their value. And then it might even be difficult to get them to the price where we think we should land them. And some properties are very sharply priced, sometimes even just below the market value. And why is that? Because the owner or the agent who sells the property has decided to do it in one way or another. So we need to independently benchmark it and make then offer or price level recommendations. In most cases we negotiate, but I think three out of 10 probably of the buyers, we recommend them to buy at the asking price because we know the asking price is solid, is not too high, and you're making a good purchase. One more thing here for people who take a mortgage. That independent benchmarking of the price, why is that so important? A lot of apartments that you like, let's talk about apartments, it's easier. For apartments that you like will be apartments, everybody who doesn't like an attic with a nice terrace and a little bit of a view, right? It's great. They cost on average 30% more than other similar properties without that terrace, without being a top floor. It's a big difference. The bank does not care. The bank is just looking at it as a average property and they apply a factor to it, but they will never reach the value in their valuation that you will pay for it. And that's where it starts to go wrong for people. They sign an earnest money contract. I say pay 10% because you think, the bank told me 80% is possible. No, we often recommend people not to buy such a property because you buy an attic for 500,000 euros. It's possible, it's likely that the bank will say it's worth 440,000, and the mortgage will be 80% of 440K, not 40% of 500K. So if you can't bridge that gap, the 60K gap in this example, you have a major problem if you have signed contracts and made payments already. Okay, that's why this benchmarking is so important. It's not because the market might be paying 500K that this is the right property for you. Okay? Once you've an agreed negotiation is done, you have a reservation contract in place, the entire due diligence starts. That's where the lawyer comes in. That's where we do technical inspections. That's where all the financial checks are done on the property. There's no charges. There's no issues with the homeowner association, city council, or the taxes paid, or with the utility contracts, etc., etc. When everything is fine, we prepare and we sign the earnest money contract, Atos in Spanish. That's when you pay, you will have paid 10% in total, 1% with the offer, maximum 1% with the offer, can be less, but in total at stage 9, you will have paid 10%. Right? And when that's a big decision, then you can open a bottle of champagne and celebrate it. It's a big commitment from buyer and seller. And then it's waiting to go to notary to complete the transaction. Again, that timing depends on either the bank or your own funds when they are available, or sometimes if the seller needs to move out, there might be some constraints on the seller side as well. That's the topics that in about 40 minutes I wanted to cover. I'm going to open up for questions now, but what you can do next is, if you're serious about buying, of course, there's a lot of free tips and insights and recommendations on the YouTube channel. Take a look at that. But if you have specific plans, follow the QR code here, or go to our website. There's something called buyer wish list. You just send us your buyer wish list. It's a simple form. You say, look, I'm thinking of these and these areas. That's my budget. I want a mortgage or not. I want a property ready to move in or want something to renovate. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, terrace, yes, no. It helps me a lot to visualize what you have in mind. Huh? You add one example there of a sample property, could be interesting. We take a look at it. We'll let you know if you think this is realistic. We'll let you know how you would approach it. And if you think it's realistic, I will set up a one-to-one Zoom session with yourself. And I offer them for free for people who are in the webinar. It's 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, but it's very, very helpful to give you more direction and guidance for your plans. Okay. So don't stress during the property search or the preparation, but do it step by step. And watch the testimonials on our YouTube. I mean, today this client also said he made a little video at a notary's office. And it looked like there's so many things that you need to do. There's so many things you could think of that can go wrong, that you don't know how they work in Spain. You buy a property for the first time, maybe a second time. The money spent on proper advice of people who are doing this every single day, well, that is very well spent money. It helps you save money. And typically, just by the fact we negotiate for the clients, the fees are paid back as well. So that's the way we look at it. I'm going to go now I'm going to stop this screen sharing. I think I see all of, well, not many people have the videos on. I'm going to go to the chat function here. And I'm going to see if there's questions. Okay, so give me a second, please. You can also open up your microphone, of course, and ask a question. That's absolutely allowed. Okay, let's see. Well, first question I see here is it better from taxes or cost perspective to buy as a company or private person? It is a very personal question. Depends a lot. Where is your money today? If all your money sits in the company, maybe there is some incentive to do it through the company. Depends as well where your company is. Is your company in Spain? Is your company abroad? Right? If it's a Swissco in Switzerland, it's not the same when it's a Spanish entity. If you think about it, so because some people say, no, I want to buy property as an investment. So buy property, maybe renovate and rent them out to get ROI. That's great. It's not worth it for one property to set up a legal entity. Normally 3, 4, 5 properties, then it starts to make sense, because there is also some management costs of such an entity. we can discuss your case specifically, Ilona, and see how what would be better. Okay. Question 2. If I sell a property in Spain and buy another one in Spain, is there taxification or benefits of investment of a money that came? I think the question is incomplete, but there's only incentives if you are a resident and you buy a property to live in yourself. Property will be your main residence. If you buy a property as an investment, you don't get such incentives. Okay.
It's me, Ilana. So if I sell something and then buy another one, which will be my first one, and say it's for me as my residence, then do I get this privilege benefits?
Well, there's some more requirements that will be checked. It's not that simple, but you need to be resident in Spain as well. You need to be paying taxes here, a tax resident in Spain. If that's the case, the first step would be going in the right direction then. What I recommend is that, because we don't provide tax advice, because it's so specific to every country and every individual, that we can put you in touch with our tax advisors. It's an external company, and they can, or if you have a tax advisor, because they need to look at your situation very, very specifically. There's another question here. Which areas of Barcelona are the best to invest? I mean, best ratio costs of buy versus future rent. In Barcelona, I didn't talk about this today in this session, but Barcelona is one of the places in Spain with the highest rents, the highest monthly rentals. They made a new housing act, a housing law recently. It was meant to reduce the rental prices. They did everything. The law achieved everything but reduce the housing prices, the rental prices. Rental prices went up by year on year in August. That's the last data I saw in August, by 9.3%. So that's significant. But it's not just that. The problem is that the supply of rental properties went significantly down. 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3 properties is disappeared from the market, and it happened the previous year as well already. So there's less properties on the market, higher rental prices, and more demand for rentals, because we see more and more and more international people coming to Barcelona to live a good life here, to work remotely, etc. So in general, it's quite difficult to find areas with bad rental returns. But of course, there is good and very good returns. But you can also buy the wrong property, so be careful of that. In my opinion, and it depends as well on what type of tenant you're looking for, Ilona. If you're looking for long-term rentals in Spain means 5-year contracts, 7-year contracts if it's a company. Long-term tenants, that's different from when you say, look, no, I want to go for the international segment. There's a lot of people there who take monthly rentals, temp rentals, and that's everything between 1 month and 11 months. That segment is very, very good in the central locations. What are central locations? Eixample. If you take the map of Barcelona from let's say from left to right, Poble Sec, Eixample, maybe some parts of Sants, all of Eixample, St. Anthony as well, Gracia. Uptown for sure as well. They're higher there. It's more for families, but as well. You go further right on the map. You go direction Sagrada Familia. You go down to Arc de Triomphe. Very good as well. And then you go further down the Poblenou, Borne. These areas are very interesting. One area I skipped, if you think about it, is the old part of town. It depends. Raval. I'm not a fan of it. There's a lot of uncertainty in that market. It's very cheap to buy there. It's the cheapest part of Barcelona, but there's a lot more risk involved. And the Gothic area there is good opportunities there as well, but depends. So that is in my view where you find very good returns, probably the best returns. If it's just about the return, you exclude Eixample, you exclude the upper part of town. Why? Because the prices to buy are higher and the rent is not proportionally higher. or not that much higher. So it's not linear, the rent. If you want to invest, drop us your buyer wish list. Let's set up a one-to-one conversation. Happy to discuss. Next question: does buying in cash offer any real advantage? Yes, Robert, certainly. There's different advantages. One, you provide a lot more certainty, guarantees to the owner. It's nearly a certain transaction. You don't depend on mortgage approvals, or you don't depend on banks. That's one thing. Sellers like that. If sellers has two possible candidates, one who needs 80% mortgage and one who says I pay cash, who would you take as a seller, the cash buyer? Secondly, timelines. You can literally do your due diligence. We draft the Atos contract, the earnest money contract. You can go to notary the next week, the week after. You don't need to wait 1 or 2 months. Not necessary. So the transaction can happen a lot quicker, and you negotiate harder, you get better deals. In exchange for that certainty that you give to the seller, you try to get better deals. There's one thing to consider here. We have a lot of people in our amongst our customers who could buy cash, but they still decide to finance part of the purchase. Maybe not 80%, but a smaller part. Why? Just to keep a buffer, and just because if they can get a mortgage at 2.8% fixed, they say, look, I have some of my money invested in the stock market or in pension funds or in wherever, and that gives me more than 2.8%. So there's an incentive to be considered here, trade-off to be considered here. Okay. Yeah, somebody is asking, is there a recording? Yeah, I think we are recording this session, right? So if you want a recording, just drop us an email. Okay. Yes, good questions. Good. It's nearly top of the hour. I'm okay to keep going if there's more questions, but let me go to it. What do you think of the? Wait, let me see. Let me see. Yeah. What do you think of price of Atos? They got skyrocketed during COVID and now still higher than average. So Atos, they are unique. Atos penthouse properties, top floors. There's only in some buildings there is non Atos. In some buildings there is one or a few. The ones with a terrace, with good orientation, with light, in good conditions, there are not too many. There is no supply of them on the market, so it's long term a very strong investment. We have buyers who only want to invest, or investors who only want to buy Atos as an example, and the rent is also significantly higher if it's a good Atos. Atos are also very vulnerable because you're under the roof, and depends on the construction of the building, which is not always great in Spain. Water leaks, insulation, thermal insulation needs to be checked very carefully. Next question: I want to help my daughter buy, but don't really want to be an owner. So I don't want to be on the legal deeds. What is the best way to do this? Can I act as a guarantor? Yeah, there's different ways you can work with, and this happens a lot. And people don't tend to talk about this publicly with their friends and so on. But a lot of parents help their children. So you can either be a guarantor, but then your daughter needs to have a job, an income, a stable work contract, and so on. Other people, they work with a donation. So you basically give the money or some of the money to your daughter. You can do a loan between family members as well. So then it should be paid back at some point. There is different ways to do this, John. So if you want to discuss further, drop us your buyer wish list. Let's have a discussion. But I need to understand better your and your daughter's profile. And okay. And then you're not on the purchase deed in those cases, huh? How can I ensure that the price I'm offering is what the property is worth? Is it a register of sold properties? Thomas, no. That's what I try to explain. That's a problem. In some countries, this is public. There's no history here. We do have access. We have access to paid databases, so we can see in the same building what has been sold for how much, or in a distance of 300 meters or 100 meters, whatever, in the same street. We can play with the numbers. Those numbers come with a delay of several months because they come from the land registry, from notaries. we use such tools a lot, but we also use our feeling with the markets a lot to know what the right offering price is. What I said before, sometimes the asking price, if you say go, that is what you should pay for it. Otherwise, somebody else buys it tomorrow. And sometimes we need to really slow down, make a low offer, probably wait, maybe continue with other properties in the meanwhile, and just see if they're willing to bring the price down. Benchmarking prices is a core thing of our work, and it happens when a client likes a property. So we have found it or they have found it, doesn't matter. The first thing we do is we go and visit it, and then we come back to the office, and Anna starts to run her benchmarks on this property. She has seen it, she has seen the building, she understands as well why they want to sell it. It's an important factor as well, not just about data. And then we come up with a recommendation, meaning this property should be, we should try and buy this at this price. Okay. For new buildings, so buildings under construction, are there any changes for the buying process? High level, the process is the same, but you will make different payments. There's not like 1% and then 9% or 10%. No, you will pay in different milestones. Depends on the project. Depends how ready the construction is. If it's not ready at all, they sell properties in Spain without having a building license. Huh? And we have a case now. The buyer signed in 2021, I believe, in January. Yeah. And they still didn't start. They're now excavating and doing archaeological works to see if they find dinosaurs and where they want to build. It's delayed, and it's more risky. You need to be very clear on who's the developer. Do they have the financial strength? Because wait a minute, developers 2 years ago, they could finance at 1%. Today they finance at 5%, and they can't finance the land. So their business case has changed a lot. So we see contracts for new developments now where the developer says, I want you to make the next 10% payment. So after half a year or so, and they include language there saying that they can pass all the rights, the entire contract, to another development company, developer. So they are foreseeing financial issues there. Be careful. What you need as well for if you finance new developments, you will need to have two valuations from the bank. One in the beginning based on the project on paper, one at the end before you buy. So you don't have these guarantees from the bank on paper. Akram, it's a bit more complex than this, but again, drop us your notes and we'll discuss. Let me see. There's one question here from Luca. What are the opportunities, restrictions on non-buildable or rural land and use of mobile homes? Rural land, non-buildable land in Spain is complicated. You can't just change it you can't just build a property on it. Of course not. Otherwise, it would be edificable, what I say in Spanish, and it's not. Depends a lot on the area as well. We are looking at a case for an owner recently in Malaga, in the south of Spain, and she actually bought a big piece of land, several years ago, and they told her you could build on it. We were checking it. She wants to sell it now, and you can't build on it. And the seller didn't tell her at that point in time, so she was just misled by the seller. It's complicated. On the use of mobile or prefabricated homes, I don't want to give you a wrong answer. I'm not sure about that part. We're not involved in those decisions from buyers. Sorry. What do you think of the quality of housing in Barcelona versus, for example, the Netherlands for properties with similar prices? Eileen, interesting question. I guess you asked the question because you visited a few properties, and when you come from the Netherlands, or I think quite some other European countries would apply as well here. Properties are in Barcelona often quite a lot smaller than what you find in more central non-European countries, and quality is very, very, very depending on the property. It's not like that. So, for instance, Barcelona has a lot of the old classical buildings that typically are around 100, 110 years old. It's not because they're older, they're not good. That's why we need to do this technical inspection. We invest a lot, and actually, personally, we only invest in old buildings because we love them, and they will never build these buildings again. They have the high ceilings, the big windows, etc., the nice elevators. It's amazing. But we had a case, was it this week? Yeah, I want to see a property this week. And so depending from when the construction is, what year the construction is, in the beginning, they used wooden structures, wooden beams, and they're beautiful, right? But the case I went to see this Tuesday, there was wood worm in some of these beams. Actually, one beam was a wood worm, not in the other one. So he made videos of it, and that's a concern. Yeah? So then it's not good anymore, because then you need to, at some point, to go and reinforce those beams with metal beams. It's technically not easy. It's expensive. Expensive means it's easily 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 euros, maybe more. They need to destroy all your ceilings, etc. It's not nice. So that's an example of when it's not good. In general, I think properties are yeah, we need to check that. For buyers who search for themselves, who search properties on themselves, they do the sourcing part. We typically discuss up to 7 properties together before you take a buy decision. And normally, on average, there's about 3 properties that we clearly recommend not to buy. And it's often because of quality reasons. So you got to be careful there. Because again, the owner will not tell you if there's a quality problem with the property. Okay. It's also different if it's new development. New developments have pretty good standards, but not all. We see new developments in Poland now, and it's a shame what they're building there. It's a shame the materials they're using there and the finishes. So we need to look at it. Again, for you, if you're looking at it, Eline, you do maybe 3, 4, 5 visits. We probably see 10 properties every single day, and every single week and every single month. So our reference points are pretty robust. Okay. There's one more question here. Is the maximum mortgage kept at 80%, or are there any instances where you can borrow more, Dimitar? I explained this, I think. So 80% is the standard maximum for resident buyers. You need to have a good job, decent income, stability, some savings. That's clear. But you can go to 90%. I have seen cases where you go to 100%. It's not very likely. It's complicated. Example, to get 90% of your fine of a mortgage on a property, the bank's valuation, or the official valuation of the property, what the bank does once before you sign up for your mortgage, so you pay for that valuation needs to be around 10% higher than the purchase price. And that's not easy. So if you buy a 500K property, they should value it at least for 560, 570, probably more than 10%. So banks say, don't worry, we can give you more. It's often not the case. But it's possible. I don't say not. I'm just saying the standards, what a standard is. Next question here. Do you offer a crowdfunding group to invest in property, Thomas? No. And because I don't believe in it. It's very simple. We've tried it before. We did it 10 years ago. We did crowdfunding 2013, 2014, 2015, and 16, I think, a bit. It's very complicated. Everybody wants to have a say in the decisions. And in the end, you have people on boards that not everybody is knowledgeable about real estate, specifically about real estate in Spain, in the specific property market. It's complicated. I know there's there's quite some companies offering this. I see the business cases they offer to their investors. I would not dare to defend such a business case. There is always major cost elements missing. We've done a lot of investments, a lot of renovations, a lot of flipping, a lot of buy to rent. Those business cases, be very careful. Be very careful with it before you put money into these projects. One more here, Eline. I'm mostly surprised by the bad energy labels in properties here. Are there ways to cheaply improve these in beautiful old buildings? So you're right, energy labels are, in many countries in Northern Europe, energy efficiency is a very important topic. Everybody cares about it. In Spain, nobody cares about it. I exaggerate a bit, but it's And so you get energy ratings of E, G, F, G, F, and that's very normal for all buildings, because the insulation isn't there, because the windows are single glass, because whatever. One rating is well often what heating system is there in place. If it's electrical heating, it's not the best energy rating. It's no renewable energy, etc., etc. So it's for houses even more. How easy it is to improve it. You can do a few things. You can work on the windows. You can work on the doors. When it's an attic, so penthouse, we sometimes recommend people to put a thermal insulation under the roof, because the roof might not have it, and if you buy them the attic, you have a pretty big problem in summer and in winter, too warm or too cold. But you can't get it from an F to an A. So that's not possible. If you buy a house, it's a bit easier because you can do a lot more, and there you can improve your rating. You can get A or B, and if you get A and B, you get even better mortgage terms with most of the banks in Spain. Okay, but Eline, don't worry. The old buildings, they're worth it, and we can discuss offline. But I wouldn't worry about this part here. That's not a big problem. So, is there more questions?
Hey, Rafa, this is Ravi. Thanks for doing this. Couple of questions. Does this energy issue stays the same issue all over Spain, or is it better in the south than the north? Same way, the quality of homes, if you look at newer homes in the south versus north, is there a difference in quality? And then I have two more follow-up, and then I'll stop. Compared to Portugal, how do you rate, Spanish market in terms of houses? And are there a group of people, doesn't matter US or any other market, are they moving to Spain who are not yet ready to retire, and they would like to do something in the local area versus doing it from where they're coming? What's the complexity there? Is it really hard for people to get started there with either a consulting or starting your own business, things like that?
Right. Let me start with the last question, because it's most on top of my mind now. There's never been more American buyers than last year in Spain. That's one data point. I think it nearly doubled, or redoubled actually, compared to the year before. The various reasons, but the ability to work remotely is a key driver for this, of course. And we made predictions, and I made them publicly before COVID, that we expected a trend of more and more people working remotely. It's been accelerated massively because of this. A lot of people, what they do is they still work, not only Americans, they live here, they live the life of Barcelona, of Spain, but they work for international companies. A lot of people from the Netherlands, for instance, are living here. They work for Dutch companies. They travel every now and then. The same for the US. Setting up your own business consulting here, it's very easy. The question is, who is your target customer, right? And who do you need to reach? If you want to reach Americans, and if you understand you remotely, that's no problem. If you need local customers, well, that is like anywhere in the world. You need them to understand that segment. But if you understand that, you're an expert. I don't see any reason why there would be a problem. Take into account, there's a very large international community in and around Barcelona. In Barcelona, I think 23% is international, the population. That's a big number. When I came to Barcelona in 2001, 22 years ago, it was very hard to find other international people. There were some, and we all knew each other. There was a handful of international people. Now, 23%. So there is community, there is everyday events, there is business clubs, there is after-work drinks, there is candlelight yoga sessions, name it, and it exists for the international community. And a lot of the people that come here, they need to work, not retired yet. So they have this very strong business drive and interest to help each other, etc. Another question, you asked a question about house quality across Spain, quality of housing across Spain, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Spain is 1,000 kilometers north south and 1,000 kilometers east west, more or less. It's very diverse. The places where most international people buy is either the big cities or the coast. If you go inland, quality might not meet your expectations, might be very, very old, not good housing, but it's not a place where you want to live, I guess. It depends a lot. You need to inspect it. We see beautiful villas on the Costa Brava, and they are in perfect conditions. And we see really bad quality houses. Of course, they're cheaper, and people still like to buy them because they like the location, they like the view, and they say, "I will fix them up." It's fine. So but there has been during the 70s, the 80s, there has been quite a bit of low construction, low quality construction. So also as well with apartments, we run sometimes specific technical tests on. We take samples from the concrete of the building, send it to the laboratory to see if the quality of the materials that they used is actually, because there are specific materials that were not good in those periods. So it's case by case. I wouldn't make differences by region because it's too diverse. You have good and bad everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. Was there a third question, or was this?
The last thing was, how do you see Spanish versus Portuguese market?
Yes. Well, Portuguese, they got an influx of international buyers because they had a golden visa scheme, which is abandoned now, doesn't exist anymore. It's not cheap anymore, Portugal. It was cheap 10 years ago. So now it's not, that's not the case anymore. Rents are high there as well. But I think that the main difference is, and it depends on your lifestyle, on the age, and what you want in terms of community around you. But with 23% international people here, it's difficult not to find a way to feel at home. That's Barcelona. If you go south from to the Sitges area, so nice little town, 40 minutes drive south. There's also very big international community, international schools on the Costa Brava. There's a lot of internationals. Maybe it's more for lifestyle and more maybe some retired people, etc. But that's what you find in Spain. You hardly find. It's more difficult in Portugal, and in my opinion, and that's specifically for people who still need to work. To work, you need an ecosystem of people, of companies, of investors, of ideas, of like for instance, I'm very active in the Belgian Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce in Barcelona, and you see that, you feel the energy, and people share ideas. They share people make joint investments, set up joint businesses because they know each other. So and you need that, in my opinion, to have options for you. Except if you know, I want to retire, I don't need any income anymore, then you can basically go anywhere where you have a nice view and good quality property. Right?
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Is there more questions? Because we're going over time, but for me it's fine. If you have there's more people, just open your microphone. Okay, I think I missed one question. Question was, what are the taxes or fees if a property is empty, not rented, and you stay there only a few weeks a year? I'm assuming you're a non-resident. I don't see your name here. It's very, very, very low. Depends as well where you're from. Again, we're not tax advisors here, but depending on your home country, there might be a tax that you pay if it's, for instance, if you're from Belgium and you don't use your property yourself, you pay a tax which is then a number multiplied by the cadastral value of the property, another factor, and so it becomes a very low number. And most countries have double taxation agreements, so to avoid you pay twice, etc. But when you do pay taxes, or when it becomes more significant, is if you rent out a property. So you use it partially for yourself, and then you rent it out for 3 months, then you pay 19 or 24% tax on that rental income, and in some cases on the net rental income, in other cases on the gross rental income. Depends again on your situation and your country of residence. Okay. Is there more questions? No, we discussed that. Okay, so if no more questions, I want to say thank you, because it's 7:20 in Barcelona now. You've all been working, and if you're in the US, you're ready for a long day. Thank you for your time. Want to discuss your plans? Send us your buyer wish list. We look at it, and if you think it's valuable, we'll certainly have a one-to-one conversation, free, with you, to help you get going, right? And that's independent from the decision to work or not to work with us. That's my commitment. You get my opinion on your plans. Here is again in the chat box the link to where you can send your wish list. And I don't know if some of you took the quiz. I'll take a look at it later. But take that as well. You find it on our website as well. But it's a very interesting way to see if you score 10 out of 10, very good, congratulations. But most people don't get a score of 10 out of 10, and then you know where you need to be careful. Success with your plans. Thank you for joining us today. Share it with your friends, with your colleagues. This is very helpful for us. If you can give us a bit of a social boost to your network. And thanks again for your time.